Welcome to the Art of We podcast. Today we are sharing a game-changing connection exercise that has made a huge impact for the two of us in terms of how deeply we feel connected. Do you want to share, Will, how this got initiated?
Well, if you tuned into our previous episode, number 92, we talked about how tough things were for us around the end of June and beginning of July of this year. And we were just rupturing all the time. And we decided to try something new and different for us. And we've been doing it every day pretty much. We missed 1 or 2 days, but it's been amazing to see the power of a brief conscious choice of connection inside of really busy lives. So we figured that lots of people listening to this show probably also have busy lives with family and pets and careers and a lot of busyness. So we are really excited about sharing the steps and also in the second half of the show today, talking about the specific impacts for us as a couple.
Yeah, and what we were rupturing about, we realized, if you go back to listen to 92, but you don't have to, because the point of it is that we realized that a lot of the rupturing was around us not being connected and not prioritizing a deeper connection. Like, of course, we're like talking about our days with each other, we're working out issues together with each other, but we're not deeply connected. And our we really needs that kind of deep connection to thrive. And that's very important to us. So yes, so we decided to try this exercise. And as you said, Will, we've been doing it almost every day since. And it can be done in 35 minutes or less, depending on how you choose to execute this exercise.
But let's get right into it.
Great. Okay, I'm going to start with the setup, and then we can talk about the rules of engagement for this exercise, and then we can just outline this is what happens inside the exercise. So the setup is to first remove all distractions. So we're talking kids, pets, don't try to be cooking. Yeah, phones. Phones need to be silenced. Anything that can get in the way of interrupting the two of you needs to be put away. Okay, and then sitting down across from each other so you can look at each other. It's comfortable. Grab a timer, and then you're going to decide who goes first. One person is going to be sharing first, and the other person is going to be listening first. So before we outline exactly what happens, Will, do you want to go into some of the rules of engagement, what's allowed and what's not allowed inside of this time together?
So the first thing that we would recommend here is that you use the time to share what we call deeper cuts. So, we like to ask each other if we're not feeling connected, what's the deeper cut? So a deeper cut would be like not just what happened during your day, which is fine to share, but how that impacted you personally, what you took away from that or what you're still holding. So that's the first thing, is using the time for deeper cuts rather than just giving a long list of headlines from your day. The second rule, and this is really important, is that the listener is there to listen generously. You can hear about that in previous episodes as well.
It's one of our agreements that we turn into a vow, which is to listen generously and to assume positive intent. I can put a link to that episode inside of the show notes, because it's such a powerful way of listening when we really understand what we mean by listening generously.
Right. So this is listening without an agenda, without judgment, without sharing your opinion, your thoughts, your advice. This is not a time for problem solving, fixing, debating, arguing, and so on. So
Yeah,
you are
really
just being very attentive and generous in your listening.
Very open listening. Again, there's a person who's listening and a person who's sharing. So the person who's listening is like this wide open, present, beautiful receipt of what they're witnessing in their partner.
Right. And then we would recommend that you avoid bringing up topics that are unresolved or very charged, emotionally charged, or that might activate yourself or your partner. This because there's not going to be this format is not for discussion. It's for exploring and sharing your deeper cuts with your partner.
And I think specifically with that one, it's helpful to not bring up topics about your relationship or about your partner, for example. I think if you have had a really challenging day and there's something that you want to be deeply known in, then and it's activating material for you, I think it's great to share. But if it's like going to activate the listener, it's hard to listen generously when there's content coming your way that could be triggering. So I think we mean something like that. We sat down last night to have our own 35 minutes or less connection exercise, and we're like, there was a big topic between us. We were pretty activated. We're like, we better not use our time for this topic. We better figure out this issue first, and then go into the deeper connection exercise.
Yeah. Different format for discussing gritty topics.
Great. Okay. Anything else that you would add to the rules of engagement from your experience or from how we've navigated this together?
No, I think the important thing is to acknowledge as a listener that there might be moments or content shared that cause your mind to wander or to get lost. And it's a beautiful mindfulness practice to build the muscle of presence to just, when you notice yourself wander, come back to your partner's sharing. And, if it's significant enough that you can't really be present, then you're going to need to speak up about that. But in general, just practicing being really present with your partner is the key.
Yeah, love that. Okay, great. So then you're ready for the exercise. So you already decided who's going to share first and who's going to listen first. So you want to set a phone timer for 15 minutes. And if you have less time, of course, you can do less time. We find that 15 minutes is quite abundant. And getting to have that time, we feel like we really feel known and seen and heard by our partner when we use it up. So, but you can do what you need to do with the time that you have. Then the first person starts sharing. And we have some prompts here, but the goal is to really think to yourself, if I were really deeply seen and known by my partner would know XYZ. So the goal is to give your partner a part of you that they probably wouldn't know about or hear about, at least as deeply, if you weren't doing this exercise together. So we have some prompts to help get that started. So one prompt is, what I most want you to know about me right now is, or you can use, what's been moving through me at a deeper level lately is, or I just need to vent and be heard about this right now. And just as a reminder, if you want to vent, if you want to complain, if you have emotions, your partner just needs to be centered in, we're not trying to fix anything. We're not trying to provide solutions. It's just a listening container. Or I'd feel really seen and known by you by sharing a deeper cut about this particular thing. Is there any other prompts that you would add to that?
This exercise helps me get in touch with the more subtle streams or layers of experience that are not necessarily part of the report about what happened today. It's like creative sparks of creative inspiration or concerns about what's going on with politics or, any kind of like little more subtle thread can be brought forward here. But that fits into some of these prompts that we've already gone over. And are we going to make these available to people?
Yes. So we're going to give you a link where you can download these prompts and a sheet just that says the exercise rules of engagements and how to do it. It's like a one pager, super simple, but we will have that available for you guys, and we can share the link in the show notes. And at the end of the episode, we'll also share that too.
Great. And what's the next step?
Before we go to the next step, I want to share a little bit of what can happen for me inside that 15 minutes. Sometimes as the sharer, I feel like I'm running out of things to share on a deeper level. Now, some people are not going to have that issue, but this can be a moment where you can ask your partner for curiosity. Like, can you provide me with some questions to help get me moving here and to give me something to respond to? And that can be really helpful for me when I'm running out of content, but I still want to be taking up my time, that Will can ask me some questions. And then once your time is up, then the listener gives about a minute to a minute and a half of gratitude and reflection. So this is really just so your partner, after sharing all of that, knows that they felt heard, knows that they felt acknowledged, and knows that they felt held by their partner. Thank you so much for sharing all that with me. It's really meaningful for me to know you at a deeper level. And then a little bit of this reflection, which might sound like, I feel most moved by hearing about this that you shared, or I feel grateful to get a deeper understanding about that and why. We have these prompts in the sheet also, something like, hearing you say XYZ, I felt XYZ.
How you were impacted as a listener from what you
Yeah.
heard.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then if it's true, sometimes what you and I do, Will, is that we like to bookmark different topics for another time that we want to dive deeper into. Of like, hey, I really heard this thing that you're struggling with, and I would love for us to talk about that if you're open to it at some other point. I think we can, move that needle forward, or what you shared really sparked this other idea that I have about how we could address that. So let's have a bookmark about that. And so you can definitely speak to those things. But the really big point here is just to really have your partner feel known.
Feels much better to feel known than to feel alone in a relationship.
And I've noticed, like, if we go too fast and we forget that step, there's a little bit of an incompleteness. But when the listener when you reflect back to me, I feel closer to you, because I know that you're listening and know that you get me. I know we're holding all this material together. So I don't want anybody to miss that step, because it feels really critical.
Yeah, and it only takes a minute or two. So
Yeah.
it's really efficient when you get some reps in and get better at it.
Totally. Okay, what's the next step after that, Will?
Well, after that, we switch roles and we go through the same process, right? Steps 1, 2, and 3. And we get to enjoy a nice hug of celebration for getting one rep in on this practice.
That's right. That's right. Once again, we have these prompts and this mini exercise in a one pager that you can download to help you get through this process with your partner efficiently and effectively. And you can find that at kristavanderveer.com/E as an episode, E93. And we'll put the link in the show notes, and we'll also say it again at the end of the show. But for now, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, you and I will, how about we share like a deeper personal cut about what this does for our partnership and why it's so meaningful to us. Does that sound good?
Sounds great.
Great. We'll be right back. Welcome back. At the beginning of this episode, we talked about this ongoing same argument that kept happening again and again and again. And when we got to the root of it, it was really about not being deeply connected together. But the arguments were showing up in these little moments of basically getting distracted, like whether it's the dogs or use of phones when we're together, and things that aren't really a huge deal, but that were bothering both of us because we weren't originally connected in the first place. And so what I love about this exercise for us is that if we prioritize this exercise, and usually these days we're doing it after work hours, like it's one of the first things we like to do if possible, and creating that baseline connection for the rest of the evening, because we're already connected, the little things aren't creeping in the same way that they would if we weren't connected. So like the dogs, at least in my experience, the dogs are less disruptive to our connection. The phones are less disruptive to our connection. And the things that would have caused the arguments are now not causing the arguments, at least not as much or hardly as much. I'm wondering if you would agree with that, Will.
I definitely agree with that. And I think it's an interesting question for folks like us who are creating the deepest possible connections with our partners, to ask yourself, because it's actually been interesting for us in this exploration to find out that a lot of the fights that we've been having, that this exercise was born out of, actually boil down to not feeling deeply connected with each other. So what you're speaking to, I think really makes sense, that when we're deeply connected with each other first, from that place, the smaller things don't become big things.
Mm-hmm.
But when we're not deeply connected with each other, it's like things can get really crunchy, and it's weird to, have an experience where someone's unloading the dishwasher and puts the cup on the counter, and all of a sudden there's a fight about that. It's like, whoa, where did that come from?
That happened last night.
Yeah. So I would invite the relationship fans out there to ask yourself, is how deeply connected are you with your partner right now? And if you're not feeling deeply connected, then speak up about it, and, give this exercise a try.
With the art of we have a massive priority on how we're doing as a couple, as an entity. And if there's anything that's coming in first place besides our connection, for us at least, it's like everything else might happen, but it's not going to happen as effectively, as joyfully, as successfully as compared to when we actually are deeply connected. And that's one of the reasons why we really prioritize our connection, is because we know it has a profound impact on every other aspect of our lives, individually, as a couple, in our businesses.
Yeah. And I think there's another piece I want to share from my experience of this exercise, is that there's a kind of managerial part of me that can be very efficient on more of a superficial level in life, of, getting life done, getting the have to do's done, the errands, the work, the whatever, emails, keeping up to date with all the communication channels and so on and so forth. But that level of being in the world doesn't satisfy um, this need for deeper connection with myself and with you and with life. And
Mm-hmm.
so this exercise for me is a really valuable break from the frenzy of the bombardment of data and information and communication and all the things, to just drop in and deeper parts of me that are parts that have a really important role to play in the meaning of life. That if I'm only in the managerial mindset, I'm kind of borrowing that term from Dick Schwartz and IFS, internal family systems. This manager part is just not a full enough experience of myself and of life. And when I get to feel the deeper aspects of you when you're sharing in this exercise, beyond the managerial aspects of you, then I get to have this kind of breakthrough the surface of just managing life together.
Mm-hmm. Totally. And you're reminding me of something that really helps me to show up more inside of this exercise, which is, if I don't take the time to deeply know myself on deeper levels, it's hard to bring that to you. And then it's harder for us to feel a deeper level of connection. Otherwise, I show up to you and I'm like, this happened today, but I'm not quite sure what else to deeply share. But one thing that's been really helping me is morning pages, which was originated, I believe, by the artist Way. And most recently, I've been re-inspired to pick this practice up by Marie Forleo, who I'm a huge fan of. She really helps entrepreneurs live into their passionate, unique gifts in the world. And the idea is to do a journal in the morning that's just basically like free writing, stream of consciousness writing. I'm doing at least 3 pages as prompted by Marie Forleo. And it's really been a game changer for me to understand and get in contact with the deeper layers of what's happening inside of my consciousness, my subconsciousness. And by doing that every day, I have a lot of really juicy content to bring you inside of our partnership. And I feel more connected to you when I can share that. And I feel that you feel more connected to me when I have more things to share at a deeper level. And I'm wondering if that's true for you.
Definitely. I mean, hearing about your deep contact and deeper layers with yourself, I think that's critical for my sense of fulfillment in our relationship, and also you know, my commitment to care for you is to know you on these deeper levels. And then I think the third thing is I feel a lot more secure in our relationship when I know what's going on those deeper
Mm.
levels for you. So there's sort of three different elements there for me that are really valuable and different. And so it's a good point about doing what is needed in order to be in contact with yourself so that you have these deeper things to share.
It's a good point that it actually can create more security inside of a partnership. Security, trust,
Mm-hmm.
knowing of each other in the process. I know that when I hear things that come out of your share that I wouldn't have normally heard because we're too busy, I'm reminded of your deep commitment as a human being for your development, for what you're facing, for what you're navigating. I feel like I get to hold all of that with you. And that's so meaningful to me as your partner. And it's kind of like when we do abundant repair, which we've also talked is an agreement, another agreement that we have, which we've also talked about. It's like when we get to a deeper level of connection, I have a somatic feeling of like, oh, I feel at home with you. I feel closer to you. I feel like my body wants to get closer to yours. It's a really beautiful, important practice for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the body is a big ally. And I'm glad you brought that up. That, again, I would invite our listeners to pay attention to that in practicing this exercise with your partner. Notice the changes. Are there changes somatically? Do you feel more open or receptive to your partner, or do you feel softer? Or I certainly do feel all those things with you when we do this. So it's super valuable and pretty efficient too. I mean, obviously you could shorten this if you wanted to, and we've tried that when we didn't have a full 35 minutes to commit. But the 15 minutes, as you said earlier, is super abundant for us. We don't feel like, we need 20 or 30 minutes or anything like that.
Totally. So we would love to hear from you all. When you practice this, if you practice this, we would love to hear your feedback. Is it working? Is it not working? What's getting in the way? What are you learning about this process? So you can reach out to us about that. And you can also find, again, this one sheet, one page that has the instructions on it at kristavanderveer.com/E as an episode, E93. You can download that there and let us know how it goes. We'd love to hear from you.
Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.